หลังจากนี้เราจะเริ่มอย่างเป็นทางการนะคะอีกสัก 2-3 นาทีนะคะเชิญค่ะสวัสดีแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะหลังจากนี้ก็จะเริ่มเข้าสู่งานนะคะก็จะขอเปลี่ยนเป็นภาษาอังกฤษทั้งหมดนะคะสวัสดีค่ะ and good afternoon distinguished professors, honored guests, respected faculty members, colleagues, researchers, policymakers, students, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the Faculty of Education here at the เกษตรศาสตร์ University.It is my great pleasure to see many distinguished scholars, educators, researchers, practitioners joining us this afternoon for our distinguished international lecture and dialogue titled Educational Research for a Changing World, Global Trends and the Role of WERA. And we'll be live on EFF Facebook as well as เกษตรศาสตร์ University Faculty of Education Facebook.And my name is Associate Professor Dr. นงลักษณ์ มโนวลัยลาว from the Faculty of Education here at เกษตรศาสตร์ University, and it is my great honor and pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremony for today's event. Before we begin, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to our valued co-organizer, whose generous collaboration has made this distinguished international lecture possible. Our heartfelt thanks go to the Equitable Education Fund,and the Office of Education Council for their invaluable partnership and unwavering commitment to advancing educational research, policy dialogue, and international academic collaboration. Your continued support plays a vital role in strengthening educational development both nationally and globally. We would also extend our deepest gratitude to the Faculty of Education, เกษตรศาสตร์ University,For our gracious host for today's event, the faculty has continuously demonstrated its commitment to academic excellence by creating opportunities for scholars, educators, researchers, and students to engage with internationally renowned experts, exchange ideas, and foster meaningful collaboration that contributes to the future of education. We sincerely thank the faculty for providing this excellent venue,and for its steadfast dedication to promoting global academic engagement. And ladies and gentlemen, to officially commence today's distinguished international lecture and dialogue, it is my honor to invite Assistant Professor อุดมลักษณ์ กุลศรีโรจน์ Dean of the Faculty of Education เกษตรศาสตร์ University to deliver the opening remarks. May I respectfully invite Assistant Professor อุดมลักษณ์ กุลศรีโรจน์ to the podium. Please join me in giving a warm round of
applause.Distinguished Professor Joe O'Hara, President of the World Education Research Association or WERA. Distinguished Professor Dr. Mustafa Yunus Eryaman, former President of WERA. Dr. Grayot Patrawat, Managing Director of the Equitable Education Fund.Distinguished representatives from Equitable Education Fund and the Office of the Education Council, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Faculty of Education, เกษตรศาสตร์ University, it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's distinguished international lecture and dialogue entitled educational research for a changing world, global trends, and the role of WERA. Today's gathering is especially meaningful because it brings together leaders from international educational research, educational policy, and educational development to explore how research can contribute to a better future for education. We are deeply honored to welcome Professor Joe O'Hara and also Professor Mustafa Yunus Yaman. Your presence is a great honor for our Faculty of Education and also for Thailand's educational research community as well. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your expertise, your experience for today. We are equally delighted to welcome Dr. Krayot. Actually, Dr. Krayot is also our alumni at Lab School, and we are very proud of him. I would say that the Faculty of Education has enjoyed a long-standing and productive partnership with EEF for a long time, and today's event represents another important milestone in our shared commitment to educational quality, equity, and research. I also would like to express our sincere appreciation to the Office of the Education Council as well for joining us as a value partner for this event. Today, education is facing unprecedented challenges. Artificial intelligence, digital transformation, climate change, and growing educational inequality. All of them are reshaping the way we learn, the way we teach, and the way we conduct the research. No single institution or country can address these challenges alone. They require global collaboration. They require shared knowledge, and they require strong research partnerships. This is why the work of WERA is more important today than ever before. At the Faculty of Education, เกษตรศาสตร์ University, we believe that educational research should not only help us understand the world, but we also hope that it should help us to transform the world as well. Through collaboration with partners like WERA, the Equitable Education Fund, and the Office of the Education Council, we hope to contribute not only to educational development in Thailand, but also to global educational community as well. I sincerely hope that today's dialogue will inspire new ideas, meaningful collaborations, and lasting partnerships that will help shape a more equitable, innovative, and sustainable future for education. Finally, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to our distinguished speakers, our partners and organizing committee, and everyone who has contributed to making today's event happen. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all the audience today. I wish you an inspiring and enjoyable afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Udomlak Gunsirod, for your warm and inspiring opening remarks and for your continued leadership in advancing academic excellence and international collaboration at Faculty of Education. And now I would like to introduce our next distinguished speaker, Dr. Krayot Patrawat, Managing Director of the Equitable Education Fund, Thailand, Dr. Grayot has played a leading role in advancing educational equity and fostering strategic partnership that strengthen Thailand's education system. Today, he will deliver a keynote address on rationale and significance of the collaboration with the World Education Research Association and its benefits for Thailand's education system. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Grayot Patrawat.
Thank you ครับdear Professor Udomlak and Faculty of Education Executive colleagues from Education Councils, EEF, and all the graduate students and people who watch from online. I just would like to spend about 5 minutes to share my sincere appreciation for the Faculty of Education. My previous home was just nearby here as a Kasesa University Laboratory School. I just would like to share one insight that I not commonly share to everyone, that I think one of the main reasons that I ending up working and founding Equitable Education Fund can date back to my experience at the laboratory school. We are actually the first school that co-educate the student and student with special need in the same classroom. I think I was the first batch that I myself study with my friend with special need in the same classroom all day, 5 days a week. So that kind of experience shaped my perspective on Equitable Education Fund since I was still in primary school. I don't see my friend different from myself or from everyone. I see them as a part of the community. And so I think that inclusive education concept shape my perspective of how we can improve equitable education in the future, and ending up helping me to form Equitable Education Fund. And when we have Equitable Education Fund, another aspect from the laboratory school is research. You have laboratory school because the Faculty of Education needs a research lab, and research lab is education. The laboratory school which my former อาจารย์ใหญ่ Professor Dharani is also my former teacher, head mistress, and also the former board of EEF. Research is very important because at KUS we don't use all the textbook from the Ministry of Education all the time. We use a number of textbooks as a research paper from the Faculty of Education. So we can get into the part that education is the thing that always evolve to research. So with these 2 points that I have experienced myself personally at Kasesa University Laboratory School, inclusive education and research-based education, accumulate into the idea that EF should start thinking about help Thailand setting up the Thailand Education Research Association. And to do that, when we navigate through the internet and through the international network, we then identify WERA. And through this OECD network that I first visit the WERA conference in Tokyo before COVID-19. And so when we think that this is the right direction in terms of policy and education system development, we partner with Office of Education Council because they are the research arm of the Ministry of Education. To set up TERA, we have to do it right. We have to have a policy support that both of the current president and former president of WERA have witnessed how we connect with the policy community this morning and tomorrow morning, where Professor Yochanan, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Higher Education, will join the colleagues from WERA on the stage tomorrow morning, which I would like to invite all of you to join on site or online at Aswin Hotel tomorrow morning. That is a policy connection to TERA as an ecosystem. However, I also would like to thank you to Professor Udom Lak that by the time I make the phone call to her that we have a wonderful colleague flew from Ireland and from Turkey to Thailand. We don't want to only have them within the policy community because equally at EEF we value policy maker as equal as education research. We should allow the opportunity for education research, students and technical community like this to also know about WERA and know about our wonderful colleagues from education research at the international level. Only when we have a healthy community on the research community and on the policy community, only with that combination of a strong community on both sides can Thailand have a brighter future on evidence-based policy making in the future. And that's why we connect and we have this session, which we would like to invite you to talk about this fast-changing world with the world of AI, with the world of this advanced technology, how this fast-changing world, this global trend, can education research and WERA and TERA can work together to make the tomorrow world a better one, not for policymaker, not for education researcher, but for real pupil and real families in the school and in the community. So I think that is the reason why we have this session today and why we have our wonderful colleagues. So on behalf of Equitable Education Fund, I would like to sincerely thank everyone to make this happen in a very quickly basis to setting up, and I would like you to enjoy the session. And for those who watching online, please feel free to type the question, and we will have someone to put the question note to the stage and to the MC later on. So thank you so much and enjoy a lovely afternoon with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is wonderful to hear that Dr. Krayot mentioning our inclusive education has been done here in Thailand long before many schools have implemented them. And he is also the first batch with special needs students since primary school. And this is wonderful. That is why it is resulted in the direction of equitable education, consequently move this far forward, and has also been the reason for setting up special research network with global stands. And now before we continue with our keynote program, I would like to take this opportunity to commemorate this special occasion with the Dean present the token of appreciation to our guest speakers. May I first invite the Dean to the stage, and I would like to have Professor Joe O'Hara on stage to accept the token of appreciation from our Dean. Thank you. Please stay on stage. Maybe step a little bit backward. Thank you, sir. And next, Professor Mustafa Yunus, Yemen. Our Dean is sneak peek of what inside. The present is sure to be impressive. Next, I would like to have Dr. Krayot Patrawat on stage, please. Now, with this special occasion, may I have all of you on the very big center for the group photo. We would like to have 3 sets. The first one with the keynote, the dean with the keynote speakers and the EEF representative. Next, may I have Associate Deans of the Faculty of Education along with the Dean, so she will not be too lonely on stage. ใช้เวลาสักครู่ในการถ่ายภาพนะคะ Could you please hold the bag a little bit up so we could see the symbol? Great. Awesome. Last but not least, I would like to have everyone to your seats, and then we'll have the cameraman, the photographer up on stage and take the pictures of all of us in the audience, please. ขอเรียนเชิญท่านช่างภาพที่บนเวทีนะคะแล้วก็ถ่ายภาพลงมาให้กับเห็นทุกท่านนะคะเรียนเชิญค่ะสวัสดีด้านหลังอาจจะมองไม่เห็นเพราะฉะนั้นขออนุญาตเรียนเชิญทุกท่านยืนนะคะเห็นไหมคะเห็นทั้งหมดใช่ไหมคะต้องการให้ขยับเข้ามาไหมคะโอเคค่ะมันเป็นทางการไปนิดเราขยับขยื่นสักหน่อยนะคะ Nice ขอบพระคุณมากค่ะ It is now my pleasure to introduce our first distinguished speaker. Professor Joe O'Hara is the president of the World Education Research Association and a globally recognized scholar in educational leadership, educational change, school improvement, and teacher education. Throughout his distinguished career, Professor O'Hara has worked extensively with governments, universities, and international organizations to promote high-quality education, research, and evidence-informed policy around the world. Today, Professor will share his insight on the topic of educational research for a changing world, global trends, and the role of WERA. Professor Joe O'Hara is a full professor of education and a member of the School of Policy and Practice at Dublin City University Institute of Education. He is a director of the Center for Evaluation, Quality and Inspection, an affiliated member of the Center for Culturally Responsive Evaluation and Assessment at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He is a former president of the Educational Studies Association of Ireland and served on the Teaching Council of Ireland. He was head of the School of Education Studies at DCU from 2010 to 2016 and a member of the Council of the European Educational Research Association. Earlier roles include board membership of the Association of Personal Services Overseas. Professor is a founding member and a director of the Irish Evaluation Network and sits on the board of the Centre for Talented Youth, Ireland, and served on the board of advisors of UNIS or the European University Alliance and the Research Advisory Board for the Teaching Council of Ireland Department of Education Teachers Professional Journeys Project. He was president of the European Educational Research Association, served from 2018 to 2023, and currently serves as president of European Affiliate Alliance for Social Sciences and Humanities. He is also President-elect of the World Educational Research Association. His lecture will explore the evolving landscape of educational research, emerging global challenges and opportunities, and of course, how WERA continues to foster international collaboration to shape the future of education. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Joe O'Hara.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Can I begin by thanking the Faculty of Education for your welcome here? Also to thank our colleagues in the EEF and the OEC for your incredible generosity in bringing both myself and Eunice here to speak to you. We've had an extraordinary visit to Thailand. We've had an opportunity to engage with educational researchers and policymakers from across the whole spectrum within Thailand. But today, for me, and this is a real highlight, because I have spent 30 years working in an education faculty, and I feel very much at home with educational researchers, with deans, with associate deans, with all of the structure of education. Because at a very genuine level, I feel that you are the group of people who will actually shape what happens within education in your country for years to come. So today what I'd like to do, along with Eunice, is to talk a little bit about WERA, who we are and what we do, to think a little bit about how you might get involved, and then to start looking at a very broad level about the type of challenges and issues that emerge within educational research. All of you engaging here in educational research understand how dynamic this field is. You understand how constantly it's changing. And yet I think you also understand the role that you play within it. And not only the role you play individually, but the role you play collectively, which is why the idea of networking and working together in a National Education Research Association and working together in a global research association is so important. And then I will finish with a couple of global trends that I think are interesting around the policy space, around how we think about what our role is in a social space, and then looking at a specific set of projects relating to early school leaving, which I think may interact with some of the policy imperatives or the policy priorities within Thailand, and then Eunice will take over and look at more specific policy translation areas and WERA. So that's the broad shape of what I'd like to do, and we'll see how much we can get done. To start with a little bit, those of you I'm sure who have heard of WERA but are not necessarily sure about what we are, we're an association of associations. We were founded in 2009 in San Diego in the US, and we're interested in developing capacity in education and educational research at a global level. So that's why we exist. We want to develop the capacity to do education, but also to develop the capacity to have education research used globally. And to us, that's two critically important parts of what we're trying to do. You can see here our global footprint, and you can see here the extent to which we have grown over the last 16 or 17 years. We now engage with colleagues from 101 countries worldwide. And we've engaged with them in terms of our conferences, in terms of our publications, and in terms of engagements and meetings like this. And I think it's an important footprint for us to see how and where we're trying to develop. Within that, as we call our WERA family, we have critical elements and critical aspects of what we are and what we're trying to do. And those critical elements involve associations, institutions, and individuals. And at an association level, we can see all of the groups we have there. And tomorrow, PERA will be joining as it's officially launched, the Thailand Education Research Association. At an institutional level, EEF has been a member of our council for the last number of years. And this is very important to us because our understanding of the way in which educational research can influence and can develop and can impact on practice and policy happens in the dialogue between the global and the local. So this dialogue is central to what we do. So we seek to bring global ideas and to look at global trends, but to have them informed by local contextual knowledge. And that's why the foundation of the Thailand Education Research Association tomorrow morning is so critical for us. Because it means that within our understanding of what it means to do educational research, the concepts and the contexts and the knowledge and the research and the ideas that you individually and collectively develop will become a core part of what we're doing. So we will bring, or your colleagues will bring what you do to us, and hopefully within the dialogue that we will then develop, our understanding of the power and the purpose and the way in which education research can impact on education will be enhanced. And that's the plan, and that's how we see this happening in a very meaningful and real way. So that's our structure, our global structure. And we can see the way it works in between networks, individual members and institutional members. Just to show you where we are, I don't show this just because I like looking at my own photo. I also show it because it gives you an idea of the global geographic spread of where we're actually from. So I'm from Europe, our past president is from Africa, our vice president is from Asia, our next president will be from South America, and our Secretary General is also from Europe. And Yunus, our immediate past president, bridges both Europe and Asia, being from Turkey. So I think we really have a sense of the importance of the global within this, and hopefully that helps contribute to what we're trying to do. In terms of what we do, and Yunus will talk about these in a few minutes, and some of these in a few minutes, we have meetings, we have networks, we have visiting researchers, we have mentoring programs, and we have publications. So we try and engage in a whole range of relevant academic activities in order to encourage individuals at all stages of their professional careers to get involved. So a core part of what we do, and I think this may be relevant to those of you working in the graduate education space, is the Doctoral and Early Career Researcher Network. And we can talk, I think Yunus will talk to that later on. So that's a critically important part of what we do. We also have research networks where we encourage people to do new things in education and to come together in an international way to try and address issues. And then we have the meetings that we try and continue. So we can talk about a little bit those later on as well. So what I'd like to do in the context of maybe the 35 minutes I have with you is to think a little bit about why do we get together in educational networks? Why do we create these types of relationships and structures and communities? What do they actually do, and why are they important? And then how do they connect with the type of research that you do and you wish to do? So as you would have heard from my introduction, I seem to have spent most of my life involved in educational research networks, locally in Ireland, in a European setting, and also in a global setting. And I think most of us here are part of these. And these are done externally to our professional lives and externally to our research lives, our student lives. So why do we do this? What is it that's important in the context of our own work that makes sure, or that encourages us at the end of busy days to get then involved in other networks on a voluntary basis? And I've been trying to understand this, and with some colleagues, for the last number of years. And I suppose what we would try to argue is that learned societies, the thing that will be formed tomorrow in Thailand, the structure that we have within WERA and within other organizations, we sort of work on three specific areas. We have an infrastructure where we facilitate groups of researchers to come together to share ideas. And that's very important. So we create a structure that's around conferences, publications, blogs, whatever it is we decide to do. We then have the community aspect. And the community aspect is critical because I think what I've learned over my professional career is that none of us is an island. None of us does research on our own. None of us can make meaningful change just by sitting down on our own and engaging in research. And in some ways, this is a bit of a challenge to the traditional idea of the research scientist who goes into a place, spends a long time sitting on their own, and then comes up with a great idea. I would argue that in the type of area we work in the social sciences, in education, our type of research is more effective when it's collective. Our type of research does more when we work together as a group with others. And that's a critically important aspect of that. And the third thing we do is we mediate. Learned societies mediate between what we know and what we do and what we understand and what we research and the wider community and the wider sphere of people who are interested. And that can be policymakers. And that's one of the really interesting things. I think this morning's session was fascinating to see the way in which the policy community is so engaged with educational research within Thailand. But also with families, with community, with society, with parents, with business communities. And what the Learned Society helps do, it helps us mediate that. All within, I mean, you can see on the outside there, the historical and changing conditions. We live and work and operate within an incredibly dynamic space. And all of the things that were mentioned in the introduction about whether it's technology, whether it's a changing society, whatever it is that we do, these areas are constantly changing. And networks of researchers help us operate within that. So the two things then, we say, we've got the infrastructure, platforms for exchange and collaboration, and mediation. We bridge, we translate, we bring what we know to the wider community. And we bring what the wider community does back into what we know. And that policy translation is critically important. And that research translation is critically important. Because I would strongly argue that if, as a research community, we are unable to communicate what we know to the wider societal space, what we know will become less impactful and less effective. So we need to be that bridge. And I think we need, as associations, to think of that. And then thirdly, we need the community support systems. And this is particularly important, I think, for those of you on the beginning of your career as educational researchers, what we call early career researchers. As you begin the pathway to a more structured engagement and hopefully a long-term career working as researchers, either within the academy or outside of it, I think it's really important that you recognize that you're supported within that. At times, and I remember from my own graduate studies, it can feel a little bit lonely. It can feel as if you were yourself working again in a difficult space, trying to move yourself forward. I think it's important that education research communities and educational research networks and associations recognize the role that they can play in supporting you. And one of the things that, for example, WERA does is we run a mentorship program to try and help and to try and encourage scholars globally to continue and to remain within this. So I do think then there's two things and two key things we need to think about. One is that what we do as research associations exists in time and carries through traditions and ideas across time. Okay, so the foundation of the Thailand Education Research Association tomorrow morning will be a critically important moment because that in and of itself is a statement made in time and it will carry with it across an extended period what we're trying to do and what we're trying to understand. And then secondly, there's a generative bit. Secondly, there's an element in which we will do new things together. And what will happen going forward within WERA and within Thailand and within TERA will be something that wouldn't happen without it. And I think that's something to remember. Coming together as a community means that things will not happen on their own and they will happen in a new way. So that's essentially just what I'm saying. We're creating and we're doing things across time and space. So from the advertisement to what we're actually doing. And thinking about, at a general level, thinking about the purpose of educational research and why we have a global input. Okay? And I think that's important in that way. So why do we have this? And there's a lot of, I mean, I'm sure many of you are more expert in this than I am. But there's a lot of ways and different ways in which we might frame this, in which we might discuss this. So there's the idea of education research providing evidence for what works in societies, for what works in education. There's the idea that research looks at a multidimensional way and different types of practices. And then there's something as research that happens within classrooms and research practitioners who then think about it, reflect on it, and do it. And these are just three different ways of thinking about educational research. And I'm sure you're aware of these. So we work within these ideas. Research is evidence for what works. It's about effectiveness. It's getting data. It's framing education as an idea in order to provide information and evidence to policymakers, systems and structures, and helping them develop new ways of doing education that meets the challenges and the needs of a particular society, whether locally or globally. And that's really important, and it's one that I think resonates with many of us, the idea of effectiveness. The second one is the idea of applied research. And it's the idea of where you bring everything together and you think of educational research not just existing in a narrow way, but in a really multidimensional space. That education research covers a whole range of intellectual areas, academic areas, practice areas, applied areas. And within that, you need to think of education research as a very dynamic area. So in my own initial training in education, we used to talk about the disciplines of education: psychology, philosophy, sociology, history, methodologies, and practice-based research. And that's what made up education. It wasn't just one thing. So you could be an educational sociologist, but you were just a subset of education in general. I think that's another interesting way of looking at it. And then over the last, particularly since the mid-1970s, but really more so in the 80s onwards, there's been the idea of research being connected to practitioner research, a critically important element. And this has been hugely influential in different parts of the world. The idea that research emerges from practice, and that if you want to fully understand the impact of any research intervention, you talk to the people who are engaging in research practice and you encourage them, train them, work with them, and allow them engage in research and give them the skills, the opportunity, and the platform to discuss this. And that practitioner research has been enormously impactful. So most systems think about research across this way. But I think one of the things that's been missing for a long time in education has been the necessity to think about educational research beyond just your own local context. And I think this is where WERA comes in. And I think this is where the ideas of transnational and international global research institutions come from. So there's some very basic ideas about, well, why do you look at global perspectives? Why do we have a global understanding of education? Why do we think about education globally? There's a simple one that you can actually sort of, if you study what another country does, you might learn something. You know, if somebody has done something in an area that you're interested in, maybe you can learn from that. Okay? A second space is that moving beyond that, which is the transfer of ideas, there's the challenge to naive transfer. That sometimes, and this is no criticism of our colleagues in international bodies, but sometimes transnational bodies, such as the OECD and other bodies, say, look, here's a set of educational research, or here's a set of educational policy imperatives, and people should do this. And they might make sense at a theoretical level, but you also need to have that local pushback, that local understanding. What happens in the context where we're working and where we understand what's important, and what can we bring to that? And I think that's where things like the Thailand Education Research Association operates. And then the third element is, how do we know who to count about, how do we know, what type of educational research to value? And it is just a fact of life that the majority of educational research that's cited and noted and worked with internationally comes from the global north and comes from people who speak English as a first language. That's where the majority of research comes from. And that in itself is naturally narrowing the space in which we draw on in terms of our understanding of what we do and the intellectual capacities of what we're trying to do. Okay, so that's a third element. So that's why a global thing happens. So what I would argue then, when you bring the two threads together, is that we need to look at the purpose of research. So we need to ask ourselves, what is legitimate educational knowledge, and who actually gets to ask and answer those questions? That's the first point. The second point I think we need to look at is think about what's the contextual impact of your knowledge when you come to talking about education and educational research. So what do you bring from your own particular context that will help shape and challenge what you're hearing at an international level? And then I think fundamentally it opens the question. I think this is a question that WERA as an association is constantly trying to reposition and refocus and use, which is, what should educational research be for? And most importantly, whose knowledge counts within that? So who is entitled to make claims about research? And who is entitled to talk about educational research, and what gives them the right to do that? And how do we challenge the hegemony of the traditional voices who dominated, and how do we bring new voices? And to us, that's where organizations like TERA and the EEF and other organizations that are involved in WERA are so important. So there are some themes then that I'd like to talk about somewhat quickly. The first one is, at a global level, there's an ongoing challenge about how do we translate what you know, what I know, what we know into policy. Okay? And this is everywhere we go. Every single system we have, whatever topic, whatever area we're working in, we spend years working in a subject area, we know something about it, and then a policy emerges that doesn't really match with what we know. So where's the disconnect there? How do we connect those two? And I think they're very important questions. So part of the challenge, and we've known this for quite a long time, this goes back into the mid-1970s or the late 1970s. Part of the challenge we have is that there's two communities when it comes to the translation and use of educational research. There's the researchers and policymakers who operate sort of separately. Researchers talk about rigor and peer review and time and length and deep engagement and many years of practice and many years of engagement, or even just an extended period. It doesn't have to be many years. Whereas policymakers quite often they need quick answers that they can implement quickly because it's a quick problem. And these communities are just, there's a structural gap there. There's a structural challenge in how do you translate that what we develop as researchers across an extended period into knowledge that's useful and applicable in the very quick policy space, okay? And one of the challenges and one of the things I think we have to acknowledge and be aware of is that just because our evidence is good and just because we know it's good, it doesn't necessarily move policy. Because policymakers have many other challenges that we don't face as researchers. So that's the first thing to think about. If we think about research, how it's actually used, and this is quite interesting as well to think about how we use research. Sometimes it's used as it's meant to be on the instrumental level. Okay? So there's a direct application to a specific decision. There is an issue we need to look at, and the researchers go, okay, we'll use that immediately. Sometimes it's at a conceptual level, that you talk to policymakers over an extended period of time and you shape the way they think about an issue. So one of the constant conversations we're having at the moment, and we've been having it, I suppose, for the last 10 to 15 years, is the manner in which we think and use technology in education. So there's been a conceptual discussion going on for an extended period among researchers and policymakers about how do we think about the way and how do we shape the way in which we use technology to support learning. And each and every iterative initiative in that comes from that same conversational space. It might have been, how do you integrate computers? Then how do you integrate the internet? How do you integrate handheld devices? Now it's AI. But it comes from a common conceptual space, and over an extended period we've been trying to think about that. This happens quite a lot. There's symbolic use of educational research, that a decision has been made to do something, and then a piece of research is used to justify that. Okay? We think every single school should integrate AI into its teaching, and here's something the OECD wrote, and it proves that we're right. Okay? So that's simple, and that happens quite a lot. And then the final one is the process, where you've got the co-design of research is critically important. That if we can engage policymakers and researchers together in designing, implementing and using research, then we hit a space where the use is actually more important and where the use actually becomes more, maybe more impactful over time. So, when we think about what you do and what we do and what I do, in practice, thinking about research over a long period of time, over the last 30 to 40 years. What do we know about how you as researchers get your research used? Well, the first thing is relationships matter. So networks matter. Networks among yourselves, networks with your colleagues, networks in your university, networks in everything you do are critically important. So you want to be involved in the Thailand Educational Research Association. You want to be engaged with the World Educational Research Association. Whatever your disciplinary network is, you want to be involved with that. You want to develop relationships with policymakers, with colleagues, with everybody you can, because that's how you get things done. It's not just the quality of your evidence, it's the quality of your relationship. The second thing is that policy windows are narrow. Okay, that specific things that people need to know are quite narrow at times. But what you want to do is that you want to try and create a situation where you as a researcher are part of this dialogue and your relevance remains over multiple cycles. So it's not just one study, you're doing multiple studies. You keep your research, you're either focused on an area or you're expanding your area, but you're constantly trying to do new things so you can continue to engage with changing policy windows. The third thing I'd say is that boundary-spanning organizations like the Thailand Educational Research Association, like other associations like this, are very good vehicles for transmitting research. That while you yourself as an individual researcher in an education sphere can produce incredibly high quality work that allows you to present to your academic colleagues in a peer environment and perhaps to influence something, you'd be far better if you're working through an organization, and you're far better if you're working with colleagues to do that. And in some ways, the gold standard of what you want to try and do is co-production. If you can engage in a situation where you're developing research that's working with, for, with, through, under, over, whatever you want to decide, with policymakers, that's the type of research that will be used. So co-design, co-production is absolutely the way if we can do this. And again, it's why having colleagues like the EEF involved here are so critically important, who are these bridge, and they do things like that. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I'd like to give you a quick idea about how this might work in practice. At the moment in Europe, we're involved in this huge budgetary thing. So there's the European Union budget for the next 6 or 7 years is being argued about at the moment. And as part of that, there's this thing called the European Competitiveness Fund, which is about 409 billion euros. And underneath that, there's a thing called Pillar 2, which is for research. Horizon Europe, which is 175 billion. Part of that, you've got research for society. And this tiny little thing in here, 8 billion euros, that's where educational research fits. Okay? So from an overall competitiveness fund of nearly 500 billion euros, you get research relevant to what we do, that's 8 billion. So a tiny percentage. Those of you economists will work that out very quickly what it is. But it's still important. 8 billion euros is still a lot of money to look at. And so this is the society window. We're looking at about 7.6 billion euros in this. And what we're trying to do is, and what's trying to happen is that within Europe, educational researchers and social science researchers are trying to make the case that what we should be doing is changing the way in which we look at education. That education, if we're going to talk about what's going to happen within a society, education should be a key part of that, because that's where the vision and the understanding and the capacity to transmit the core ideas that are important to our society happen in the education space. And how do we try and do this? How do we try and make a case in a budgetary framework and a budgetary society that's focusing on economic issues and competitiveness and different elements of what European policymakers think is important? How do we as educational researchers come along and say, we'd like some money, please? So how do we do this? Well, I would say we do it in 3 ways. And I think we do this. WERA works in this way, and education research associations work in this way. We provide evidence. So if we're going to go into a policy space and say, we want to get resources to do educational research, we have to have evidence of why we need that. Okay, so we need to have data, we need to have evidence, we need to have information. We need to be able to say, this is what we know, and this is why we should be supported. We also need to lobby. There's no point in us telling each other that we're great. There's no point in us sharing with each other how good we are and what we know. We need to actively get out in the space and say, this is what we know about. So we need to push ourselves forward, and we need to organize. We need to create collective structures that allow us to develop and bring together who we are at a broader space. And I think that's very important. And this is, say, one way we've done this. So this is one of the associations I'm involved in, that the European Education Research Association is also involved in. So the evidence, what we did was we wrote this big document. We actually wrote something and said, if you want to say that, if you want Europe to develop in a way that is democratic, that values inclusion and looks at the common good, here's our proposal. It's evidence-based, it's supported by research, and this is what we're trying to do. So you present that, and obviously nobody wants to read that slide, but that one is better. It was okay. The other bit just said, you produce the evidence and then you actually put it into practice, and you say, this is how it can change. So if that's it at a theoretical level and a practice level, the final thing I'd like to talk about then is how do you translate from evidential statements saying support our research to actually policy initiatives in areas. And this is a research project that was very impactful in an area that I think is of interest within Thailand in general since we've been here, which is looking at how do you deal with the issue of early school leaving, educational underachievement, and people not in education or training. And this is a critically important element of it. And I noticed as I was preparing here, this is something that the EEF ran last year within Thailand. I don't know. Obviously, blue screens aren't something that people like. That was also the minister who we met this morning, who's promoting ASEAN Zero or Thai Zero in terms of leading, okay? So this is important, I think. Oh, and I'm gone now. And now I'm back to myself. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, we're back. Okay. So these are things then, if we think about where we've gone from the idea of why do we do educational research in the first instance. The secondly is how do we collectively do this in order to influence societal and policy areas in order to get funding. And now the third one is how do we in practice try and implement these understandings of what it means to do research in an area that's of social interest. So when we frame the idea of early school leaving, we can frame it in an educational way. Because obviously we as educational researchers know this. We know the educational impact of individuals who fail to complete compulsory and mandatory educational cycles. We know what that does as educators. We know what that does as educational researchers. But if we're trying to make the claim to a wider social benefit, we need to think about, well, how do you present that at a policy level in this bridging way to groups of people who maybe don't have our understanding of it? So one of the things that you do is try and talk about, well, what are the long-term social impacts of early school leaving and underachievement? Why should society be interested in this? And we know the ones we know about here: lower employment, increased risk of poverty, health problems, intergenerational impact, higher crime rates. We know these things, but these have an impact. These have a footprint beyond education. And I think that's important to think about. This project was a large project. You know, I won't go through all the figures, but it ran across 10 countries, talked about 400,000 engagements with secondary data sources, produced lots of stuff. So this was the idea underneath it. And what it tried to argue was that if you're going to look at issues around early school leaving, you need to look at them in individual levels and in contextual levels. So both in terms of cognitive abilities and the capacities for individual to engage cognitively with educational areas, all the way through to cultural challenges and social challenges. So we're presenting this idea and we're presenting the space in this way. And if you're going to support students throughout their educational journeys, you talk about well-being, you talk about relationships, you talk about having high expectations, and you talk about investing in early years education. So we've gone from a case where we've made a social case why early school leaving should be addressed, and then you're giving specific types of integrated and focused policy and practice interventions to what we might do. And that's that thing. And then a third thing that we might look at then is how do you actually do it? And this is back from the bridge from policy into practice. And the idea that was underpinned this project was that if you're going to do educational research in a meaningful way, you don't just do it by taking control yourself, you engage in dialogue. So educational research at all levels is dialogic. And one of the core underpinnings of this type of contract or this type of way of doing things was to bring all stakeholders together to talk about and think about and engage with policy solutions and ways in which we might do educational research to impact and to change educational research. So I think that's an important element as well. You build dialogue and you build creation, or you build it all the way in. Which then brought us to this idea of impact. So from the very beginning of the policy process, what you create is you create an impact platform from the beginning. So you don't just generate and create research that's for its own good. From the outset of projects, from the outset of any educational research we do, we think of impact, okay? We think about how we're going to implement this. We think about what we're trying to do. So you develop an understanding of what it is. You then talk about how you're going to translate it into practice. You actually implement it and say, this is what we're doing, and you test it. You then share what works, and then you continually engage in this relationship. So from the beginning of the process of you doing research, you're building in a structural impact in order to make sure that what you do will have a long-term, sustainable societal impact. And I think that's critically important as well. And then you produce materials, and this is just the materials that were produced in this. So that brings me to the end of what I was trying to talk about. So what I tried to talk about and what I tried to do was think about what WERA does and why it's important to have a relationship between education researchers globally and education researchers locally within Thailand. To look at that then in the context of what's the function of educational research, to connect that to the type of values that underpin educational research, and then connect it into a specific policy area, which is around early school leaving, and think about how you design research policy in order to impact on a global area such as early school leaving, and then connect that into maybe future development. So if you're interested, please do continue to engage with WERA. Definitely continue to engage with the Thailand Education Research Association. And for those of you who like traveling, come join us in Spain next year for the World Educational Research Association Conference, which will be next year in Spain. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Professor Joe O'Hara, for your insightful and thoughtful-provoking presentation. We'll gather the questions after Professor Mustafa's speech, so both speakers can exchange ideas with you all together. And Professor have shared perspective on changing landscape of educational research and the important role of international collaboration, especially WERA flagship initiatives and academic activities. And now, we are moving on to our second distinguished speaker. Professor Dr. Mustafa Yunus Oryaman is the past president of the World Education Research Association and internationally respected scholar whose work spans curriculum studies, educational philosophy, comparative education, and educational policy. His research has contributed significantly to advancing international dialogue on educational innovation, democracy, equity, and global educational development. Professor Mustafa Yunus Oryaman is a professor of curriculum and instruction at Çanakkale, University of Turkey. Professor is a distinguished scholar in education policy and research and served as president of World Education Research Association and as a research expert at the European Commission. His international academic experience includes appointments at the University of Hamburg and in Germany and London Metropolitan University in the United Kingdom. His research span educational policy, curriculum theory, qualitative inquiry, and progressive education. He is the author and editor of several influential publications, including Teaching as Practical Philosophy and the International Handbook of Progressive Education. Professor Aryaman received his Master of Education from the University of Missouri, Columbia, which I am delighted to mention is also my alma mater, and his PhD from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, USA. Today, Professor will continue our discussion by sharing further perspectives on the future of educational research and international collaboration in addressing the complex challenges facing education worldwide. So please join me in extending another warm welcome to our Professor Dr. Mustafa Yunus Aryaman.
Yes. Hello, everyone. First, before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the Dean and Executive Committee of the Kassersat University for organizing this wonderful meeting. I am glad to see that CRIOS was able to organize an event for us to meet the education researchers. This is exactly that we want to have when we come to Thailand, because in the morning we had a chance to meet the policymakers, and tomorrow we are going to also meet the Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand. But this meeting is more important for us because we want to talk to educational researchers and early career scholars. Our dean told me that some of you are doing your masters and PhDs in the Faculty of Education at this university or other universities, I don't know, but therefore it's very important for us to show you how you can develop your capacity through Thailand Educational Research Association and World Educational Research Association. This is our website, the WERAonline.org. The reason that I'm showing this website is to make sure that you have an on-site perspective about how you can go and register to our programs. One of them is if you go to the About, can you click on About? No, it's not the About. Programs, yes, programs. Can you click on the programs? Yes. And there is a Doctoral and Early Career Network. Can you click on Doctoral and Early Career Network, please? Yes, click on that. And you see that World Education Research Association has a specific network for early career scholars and graduate students. This is a very important network. The reason is that, as Joe indicated, that the capacity building is important. We need quality evidence. And as the next generation of educational researchers and educational leaders, you need to have the capacity to write great proposals, create quality evidence to inform policy and practice. How you can do it is that you can join this type of networks, join the activities and events of the doctoral and early career scholar networks, so that you will have the best knowledge about the best practices and best methodologies of educational research. If you go down a little bit, you will be able to see our representative. And as you can see, each association has one representation in our doctoral and early career network. CRIOS, when you establish the Thailand Educational Research Association, we are very appreciative of if you create a doctoral and early career scholar network and then appoint a representative, so that the educational research, doctoral and graduate students and early careers will have a representation in the World Educational Research Association. We have also, if you go up, please, and we have a LinkedIn website, and there is also a form. If you click on that form, and if you include your information and email address, you will get the details of our activities, and then you can join and participate in these activities of our doctoral and early career network. We organize symposiums, we organize conferences, we organize seminars, we organize season schools. For example, the European Education Research Association organizes 5 or 6 seasonal schools. You can also apply to that activities. They also accept some of the doctoral and early career scholars from different parts of the world. And we conduct trainings for the grant writing, and we have also several important scholarships. One of them I would like to show you that you can apply. Go back to the programs, please. And Visiting Researcher Award. Can you go to the Visiting Researcher Awards? Well, yes, that one. Click on that. As you can see, our doctoral and early career scholars can apply to scholarship, WERA scholarship. If you are working on longitudinal or cross-sectional data, particularly, I will show you an example. University of Hamburg and IEA. Do you know what IEA is? IEA is organizing the TEAMS and PEARL studies. And they have an office in Hamburg, and they are collaborating with the Hamburg University. If you want to have a research 3 months at the Hamburg University with the data of IEA, and you are welcome to apply our scholarship. We have also Nanyang Technological University from Singapore. They also host one doctoral and early career scholar to their program to evaluate their data produced in their institution. And we have also, last few years, we had also scholarship from the American Education Research Association in Washington, D.C. They also host the scholars to come to the Washington, D.C. and analyze their data and learn about the methodologies that they are using. I think these are great opportunities for doctoral and early career scholars to participate. And we have also mentoring program. Can you go up and programs, mentoring program? Click on the mentoring program, please. After the, yes. Please go on. Not Sabrika, not yet. Just click on the mentoring, yes. And as you can see, if you go down, WERA has a group of academics, well-known senior academics. They are accepting mentees to have collaboration together online. You don't have to go to the institution. You do it online, but you need to be a postdoctoral student. What do we mean by postdoctoral students? People who completed their PhDs within the 5 years of their studies can apply to this mentorship program. If you go down, please, you will see the mentors. As you can see, professors' names and their areas of studies. You can look at them and you can select a professor, and then they will send a message to fill out our form, and then we will match you with the professor, and then you will start having online meetings with our professors, and then they are giving you mentoring and advice about how to produce good studies, how you can improve your opportunities to get jobs from different parts of the world, how to participate in the research networks around the world. And I think it's a very good opportunity. Sometimes I heard that mentees are going to the, after our program, mentorship program, the mentor invited several our mentees to their own institutions and helped them to participate in their research projects. I think this is a very great opportunity for the education researchers. These are the very critical and very important opportunities for you. If you are a doctoral student, if you are an early career scholar, and if you want to improve your methodological skills, grant writing skills, and if you want to increase your networking potentialities, and please participate in our activities. Yes, thank you. And as Joe indicated that we are no longer expected to sit in our offices and generate data. We have to create networks. We have to participate in lobbying activities. That's surprising to you, but that's the realities of our time. Policymakers, they are not waiting for us to come to their to our conferences and sessions, and they are not going to read your dissertations 200 pages, 300 pages. They don't have time. What we need to do is we need to translate our evidence, translate our findings to the policymakers' expectations and needs. We need to have a conversation. We need to have dialogue. I think in Joe's presentation, he indicated that the social science and educational research organizations in Europe created a network to have a sincere and dialogic communication with the European Commission to make policy changes. Therefore, Thailand Educational Research Association is very important for Thailand to influence policy making in Thailand based on high quality evidence. And we are hoping that soon Thailand Educational Research Association will be established. And please join the association. We take active role in the association. And being a member of Thailand Educational Research Association means that you are automatically a member of World Educational Research Association. You don't have to pay anything, and you can apply free of charge to these activities and events. Let's move on to the presentation. Mobilizing research worldwide, World Educational Research Association role in the global evidence ecosystem. As Joe indicated, we don't impose the evidence or the policies onto the countries. What we want to is that we want to learn from local communities of different parts of the world to have communication and dialogue with each other and then learn from each other. And we generally, one of our aims is to go to the countries where there are no educational research associations. We want to help educational research associations from the underrepresented regions to create their associations, join WERA and have conversations, and create their own knowledge, create their own policies, create their own models based on the quality evidence that they generated from the local contexts. Instead of transferring the models from Eurocentric and Anglo-Saxon parts of the world and then apply in their local context, you can learn from them, but you can create your own models in your national context. Therefore, you need to have organized associations like Thailand Education Research Association to have that kind of a relationship. Can you move to the next slide, please? I'll do it here. In today's presentation, we are going to talk about two important paradigms that's dominant in the educational research. One is evidence-based research, and second one is evidence-informed research. I am surprised in the morning session that the Minister of Education and the colleagues from the Office of Education Council, they were using the term evidence-informed research. As you can see, in Thailand, these concepts are becoming very important concepts, not only Europe or United States, but also all over the world. These two concepts are becoming very important concepts. Therefore, I'm going to discuss these concepts with you. But if you would like to learn more about these concepts, please, I'm inviting you to read two resources that I am editing. The first one is Evidence and Public Good in Education Policy and Research and Practice. I am edited this book with Barbara Schneider from Michigan State University. And if you go to the... yes. In this book series, in the book, we invited 24 contributors from OECD, US, Denmark, Belgium, Sweden, Finland, Singapore, Australia, Spain, Turkey, and Netherlands to demonstrate how in their local contexts, how they generated high quality evidence, and how they transformed the practices and policies in their national context. Therefore, but there's another concept that we are going to today is the public good. We are not only generating evidence for the private interest, as Joe indicated in his presentation, that most of the European Union's project budget goes to the economic interests. Societal aspect only gets a very little amount in the whole budget. Therefore, as the educational researchers from Europe, we have an ethical responsibility to tell policymakers that public good is important, and public goods educational researchers can produce evidence to demonstrate that evidence can make changes for the public good in different parts of the world. And this book provides case examples and best practices of use of scientific evidence to improve conditions of societies around the world. The second book actually is a book series published by the World Educational Research Association. Barbara Schneider, Feris Levin, and Ingrid Gogolin, and I am editing this book series. In this book series, we invite academicians around the world. If you have data from 2 different countries, and if you indicate and demonstrate that your use of evidence supports public goods, you can submit your proposals to this book series. If you would like to get more information about the book series, please visit the website. And you are welcome to make submissions to write book in the series. And if you have questions about the book series, you can send me an email. Yes. When we look at the outline of my presentation, you will see that I will talk about 2 important paradigm in educational evidence discourse. One is evidence-based policy and research. The second one is evidence-informed policy and research. Then I will discuss how World Educational Research Association contributes to these discourses around the world about this concept of evidence-based and evidence-informed educational research. At the end, I will provide you a case example of one of the research that I am coordinating. The title of the project is Evidence-Informed School Evaluation and Big Data Research to Shape Future Schools. I will give you examples of how World Educational Research Association helped me and educational researchers around the world to come together to conduct this multinational project. Okay, let's have a dialogue. Please look at this cartoon and tell me what you understand from this. Anyone would like to have a comment about it? Think about it also the name of the title of the slides. Evidence-based policy and research. Any comments? Yes, please.
Collecting useless data in the first place.
Collecting useless data in the first place. What do we mean by the useless data? What can we say about it? Do you feel that the evidence that you produce in your research studies do not have any impact on policy and practice? Do you have a feeling that nobody's going to read this research study? Do you have such feelings? This is not only the feeling of ours. Let's see who else did the same critique. Particularly starting from 2000, Department of Education and Employment and the Office for Standards in Education in Britain and NRC's National Research Council in the United States and No Child Left Behind Act in the United States. These are the policy makers and policy documentations. that demonstrate and criticize educational research and social science research. They have three important critiques on educational research. The first one is educational research does not deliver answers to the questions policymakers request in order to develop educational policy. As Joe brilliantly demonstrated how this idea of doing research and not participating in the dialogue causes so many good, excellent evidence to sit in our libraries without having any impact. This is one of the critique of policymakers on education research. As you can see, policymakers are criticizing us. They are saying that your evidence that you produce in your research studies, they don't make any use for their policy developments. Yes, the second one is educational research does not provide clear guidance to the educational professionals to improve their professional practice. There's a gap between research and practice. This is another critique. The third one, educational research is methodologically inconsistent, fragmented, politically motivated, and non-cumulative. I think the last part is very important implications. I will tell you why. And it's very difficult to convince some of the supporters of an alternative view. I'm going to tell you about what do we mean by non-cumulative educational research. Let's see what happens. After these reports, there was a call for reforming educational research and practice in Britain and US. And as I told you that in this morning, I also heard it from your Minister of Education and the policymakers in Thailand. They are also using the same concepts in their conversations, saying that we need to have high quality evidence-based policy. What do we mean by evidence-based policy? United States, they generated institutions to make sure that educational research or higher education institutions produce high quality evidence-based research and policy. Particularly Cochrane collaboration as the representative of the field of medicine and Campbell collaboration of the social sciences. And in these reports and initiatives, you will see that randomized controlled trials were the dominant methodology accepted as the best methodology to provide high quality evidence. And particularly, let's look at and after these reports, institutions start publishing hierarchies of quality of evidence. And when you look at this pyramids of quality of evidence, what do you recognize? Can you say something about this is the Dartmouth College and Yale University's evidence-based method page generator. You see that quantitative research studies, particularly randomized controlled trials, meta-analysis and systematic reviews, ranked as the high quality, the best high quality evidence resource. And with what do you see at the bottom? Case studies, qualitative research. They identified not all evidence-based movements. Some of them identified them as the least trustable evidence. And many academicians in the United States and in Britain were furious about these publications and the policies that affected their work. Therefore, alternative perspective, there was another paradigm developed throughout these conversations. The new paradigm is called evidence-informed or evidence-aware policy and research. When we look at the arguments against the evidence-based movement, they said that equating the fields of education and medicine and the different implications of evidence in these fields demonstrate that you cannot ask educational research to do the research same as medical field. The second critique was that the positivistic assumptions forming the notion of evidence-based education and narrow definition of research advocated in evidence-based movement was another critique. The third one was the top-down linear approach to educational achievement. These were the critique from the liberal and left-wing educational researchers against these policy initiatives. As I said, that more nuanced approaches emerged, evidence-informed, evidence-influenced, and evidence-aware policy and research developed. And then the main principles of these approaches are that instead of developing hierarchies of evidence, as we have seen in the previous slides, we need to focus on evidence-informed practices that are sensitive to the different individual and professional perspective and context. We should celebrate the diversity of the methodologies instead of putting them the different hierarchical models. And the second one is, rather than classifying which source of evidence universally superior, efforts should be made towards identifying the source of evidence that are contextually relevant, empirically supported, rigorous, systematic, and scientifically credible. These were the critique from the evidence-informed policy and research. Today, still, there's a paradigm war between these two approaches towards evidence. What about the World Education Research Association? And what are we doing in terms of dealing with these discourses on evidence around the world? As Joe indicated, that World Education Research Association representing over 100,000 academicians around the world. And we have 29 associations, 5 institutional members, and 26 international research networks. I forgot to show you the research networks. If you visit our website, you will be able to identify the around 26 research networks. If one of them is relevant to your studies, please send an email to the head of the research network, and then they will be able to add you to the network, so that you will be the representative of Thailand in that network. And then you can participate in activities of that area in your field, in your country. That's therefore important. Joe already mentioned about these things, and then I will move on. What are we trying to do is that we are trying to identify the cutting-edge research and emerging trends across diverse contexts. As I indicated, that we have also 2 publications. One is the Springer book series. We are trying to bring more than 2 countries together to demonstrate how their evidence contributes to the public good in different parts of the world. Our second book project is Emerald Book Project, which is the publication that we use the manuscript submitted to our conferences, and we select some of them and then we publish as a book. If you participate in our conferences, like next year in Spain, you will be able to have an opportunity to submit your presentation to our book series. We also connect people, researchers, associations, policymakers from different nations and disciplines, as we are here today. As the representative of the World Education Research Association, we had an opportunity to meet EEF. They became our member. Then we had the chance to meet the policymakers. Now we have a chance to visit a university and meet the members of and students of the Faculty of Education. And we also mobilize to ensure that evidence is not just produced, but actively disseminated, discussed, debated, ultimately applied to the informed education policy and practice worldwide. And we have national associations, regional associations, and institutional members. As you can see, American Education Research Association is founded in 1916. 100 years later, we are discussing establishing the Thailand Education Research Association. As you can see that there is a tradition of education research associations very strong in different parts of the world. They have 30,000 members and 12 divisions and 184 special interest groups. Last 110 years, they are producing evidence on different fields of study. And this is very important, that you have a tradition of producing high quality evidence in different aspects of the education. We have also Japanese Education Research Association from the Asian region. As you can see, they are founded in 1941 and they have 2,800 members. We have regional members such as European Education Research Association, and they have 40 national and regional member research associations. And we have institutional members like IEA, as I mentioned in my beginning of my presentation, which is responsible for TEAMS, PEARLS, ICCS, WESL studies. And in 2025, Equitable Education Fund became a member of World Education Research Association. These are the examples that demonstrate that we have representation from different parts of the world. Some of our members are very well established. They have very strong foundation, and then they have very big budgets. But we have also very new members, and Thailand Education Research Association is going to be one of our youngest members. With the participation of EEF to WERA, now Thailand educational researchers has opportunities to access to the global networks, and membership will enhance the research collaboration. Today and yesterday we had conversation with the EEF colleagues to conduct a research, a joint project in Thailand to bring high quality AI centers to the faculties of education in Thailand with the joint collaboration with European universities. And after this presentation, I think we will have a conversation with the Dean of the Faculty of Education and other universities to do projects together like this one. And these are the opportunities that WERA creates. As I also mentioned, that WERA have international research networks. You can be part of these networks, and these networks have representations from many different countries, and you will be able to meet with the professors who are working in your field, and then you can improve your networking and research capacities. And as we mentioned that we are hoping that the local communities like Thai educational researchers will come to our conferences, participate in our activities to share their knowledge, local knowledge, and will be able to transform the global policy dialogues from the Thai perspective. That's an opportunity that EF will be able to. As Joe mentioned, now Thailand Education Research Association will be established very soon, and with the establishment of Thailand Education Research Association, there will be a national organization which will bring together researchers from diverse disciplines, institutions, and regions to create a relational research ecosystem in Thailand. And Thailand Education Research Association will be a powerful voice for advocacy. As Joe indicated, that in Europe there is a lobbying advocacy processes going through the special research organizations and associations, and Thailand Education Research Association can do the same thing in Thailand. And it's going to be a hub for professional development, particularly for our emerging and early career scholars and doctoral students will be able to participate and being a member of the Thailand Education Research Association. And in the future, you will be the leaders of the Thailand Education Research Association. You will be able to participate in the both global and local dialogues about the importance of educational research. Let's move to the final part of my presentation, which is about the case study. This case study is a multinational longitudinal research project. I am coordinating this project. The purpose of this project is to use big data and artificial intelligence to contribute to the quality of public schools as the institutions of serving public goods. We developed a transactional ecosystem model of school evaluation, both internal and external evaluations and educational excellence practices inform and transform each other. And we expect in this project to each school to develop their own model of excellence based on both big data research and at the same time quantitative data. This project aims to develop empirical case studies and best practices of knowledge mobilization to support school development at longitudinal level. And we aim to identify the structural inequalities by using the big data. And we are also aiming to critique the ways in which educational efficiency is seen to trump equity in policymaking. And our project's aim is also challenge the promotion of public school as participants in the competition of league tables. What we are doing is that we are generating big data by using our softwares, and we providing this data back to the schools by using artificial intelligence. And we are helping schools to develop their own school excellence models based on the data that they generated from, but we also focus on the qualitative data. We also ask them to come together with the stakeholders of their school communities and then discuss these findings and create their own way of improving their quality practices. This is the members of our project. As you can see that Turkish Educational Research Association, Polish Educational Research Association, Kosovo Educational Research Association, Cyprus Educational Research Association are part of this group. This is the advantage of being a member of the World Educational Research Association. You are able to bring different associations together and create multinational projects. We have 3 stages in this project. The first one, we first developed a software. With this software, we ask the schools to enter the data based on the criteria that I'm going to show you in the next slide. In the first year, schools are entering the data into the big data research platform. In the second year, we provide schools with the evidence generated from big data research in phase 1. And we ask our schools to invite the school communities of school stakeholders come together and discuss what they learn from this big data. And we ask them to create their own self-evaluation reports based on the findings of this big data. And we ask them to generate qualitative data to demonstrate how they can develop their own model of school excellence. As you can see in the phase 3, at the third year, our teams are going to the schools. We are discussing their self-evaluation reports with the members of the school communities, and then we help them to reorganize and redesign their school excellence models. These are the criteria for evaluating the school quality. As you can see that leadership and administration, accountability and transparency, educational excellence, school culture and values education, counseling and guidance, 21st century skills, research, development and innovation, community empowerment and public service, safe and accessible schools. These are the main criteria to evaluate schools. As you can see, there are 462 questions. This was for the pilot study. We reduced these questions to 120 questions. And then and as you can see, when we provide feedback to the Ministry of Education regarding to the level, statistical level of the schools, we use the impact factor. As you can see, impact factor for leadership and administration, educational excellence are 25%, and the rest is 10, 25, and 5%. They have different impact on their quality evaluations. 200 schools participated in the pilot study in Turkey, test the software, online platform, and internet school evaluation model. And we are in the process of negotiating with the Ministry of Education in Turkey to sign contracts to extend the project to the 4 different cities. Data collection for external evaluation will start in February 2027. And integration, we will integrate the artificial intelligence to the platform in 2027. And I will tell you how artificial intelligence is going to help the schools in that regard. And we are expecting to publish the results in 2029. Well, our ultimate goal is to collect data from 1 million teachers, 15 million students, and their parents in 55,000 public schools. We want to create the biggest educational data sets in the world, which is going to be longitudinal. But we are not going to stop there. I will tell you in the next slides. And we are hoping to sign contracts with the other project partners in 2029. And what is the purpose of AI agents? With the help of AI agents will provide personalized coaching to the teachers in the participating schools. And AI agents instantaneously provide a detailed feedback on their work based on the big data research. And they will also guide teachers through self-reflection and goal setting and help teachers to see their strengths and weaknesses to improve their teaching practices. These are how we use evidence produced from big data research and how this data can help teachers to improve their practices. What we have accomplished so far and what we are planning to do is that our main aim is to develop a comparative study to demonstrate if there is a relationship between the quality of schools and educational achievement of schools based on PISA and team studies, OECD and IA's data. And there are no such studies around the world. The first time a longitudinal study will have a relationship between the cross-sectional big data. If we can demonstrate that, this is going to be a global policy-changing moment in the world. As part of this project, we have 200 doctoral students. We are training them in data analytics, big data research, and advanced methodologies to develop an ecosystem of big data research with artificial intelligence. And of course, we are empowering teachers with the ethical use of artificial intelligence, and we will also provide them micro-credentials as they get in-service training in this model. As you can see, there are many opportunities that World Education Research Association can provide. I gave you one example from my research studies and how I created this research team. And hopefully, EEF and Thailand Education Research Association will provide many new opportunities for the Thailand educational researchers. And looking forward to working together with you in our conferences, in our events, in our seminars. And I hope that we will be able to see some of you at our next Congress in Spain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Mustafa Yunus Oryaman, for your inspiring presentation and for your sharing information on WERA project with us this afternoon. And we have now had the privilege of hearing 2 distinguished leaders of the World Education Research Association share the perspectives on global trends, international collaboration, and the future direction of education research. We'll now move into the dialogue and question and answer session. where participants can warmly invited to engage directly with our distinguished speakers. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and our staff will bring a microphone to you. We kindly ask that you briefly introduce yourself before asking any question. Without further ado, let us begin. Are there any questions from online? May I invite questions from audiences from here, both in online and in this conference room. You may write your question in Thai and I'm more than happy to translate for you.
Yeah, I'm Chatri Phaikamta from Faculty of Education. First of all, I would like to say thank you very much for your insightful and very inspiring presentation, especially like how can we translate our research into practice and make a real impact. And could you please give us more recommendation about real impact? I mean, what do you mean by real impact? Should be like, because many people may say, okay, the impact is like publications and make a, for example, make us our society better, something like that. What, in your perspective, what is the impact? Yeah, that's my question. Yep.
Thank you. That's a very good question. Probably take me 2 hours to answer it, so I'll try to do it quickly. Impact is a really interesting question because depending on where you start from, impact looks different to different people. So, but I like the way that you framed it, because impact in terms of the way in which academic value is currently understood has been reduced significantly across many systems to research impact in publications or research income generated, which in and of itself is okay. But I think what you imply in your question, or as I understand it, is I think we need to think at a broader level than that. Now, to me, it comes back to what I was trying to talk about a little bit, is what our vision of education is and what our philosophy of education is. Why do we do education? And ultimately, I would say we do education in order to improve our society through the provision of opportunity, information, knowledge, and safe spaces for our children and for future generations. This is why we do educational research. Educational research is about improving educational opportunities for the benefit of our society. So in that then, how do we measure impact in that? And Eunice very creatively and very generously spoke about the whole idea of evidence and that. But I do think that fundamentally and underneath that, we need to look at specific areas in which the way we do research improves the lives of those in our society. So I'll give you a very practical example. One of the challenges we're facing within my own country, within Ireland, within Europe in general, is a huge increase in migration populations, in immigrant populations coming into our education systems. They've happened because of global crises, such as the war between Russia and Ukraine or the war in Syria. And you have education systems that were created for a particular type of social structure are now trying to include lots of other people within it. And what we found is that migrant students coming into existing systems in many cases have poorer educational outcomes. And one of the reasons can be language, that they have it's complex for them to engage with the language of the majority system. So a very simple piece of research that was done in my university showed that if you provide language support for students from migrant backgrounds, it enhances their capacity to engage with the education system. They stay in education longer, they do better, and they benefit society. That's impact. Okay, so to me, that's what I think we should be doing. We should be reconceptualizing, rethinking, and refocusing impact in order to think about it as part of an overall societal good, not just outputs that can be measured for research careers. Okay, you want to?
I think part of my presentation demonstrated that we can have a big impact in school communities, transform the schools from the bottom-up approach instead of the top-down processes. We can use big data research to help the local communities, local schools, to transform themselves instead of waiting Ministry of Education to tell them what to do. And this is a good example of producing an educational research evidence that can inform practices in the school level, and then they can learn from it, but they can create their own version of quality of school quality. This is one example. The second example is a action research study. If you are a teacher, if you are conducting an action research in your classroom, this is also an impact. Changing one child's life is also important for us, as changing the whole education system. These are both valuable endeavors. I think what evidence-based research misses is that they give priority to the certain methodologies. These should be the scientific methodologies, others shouldn't be, but this shouldn't be the case. We should celebrate the diversity of methodologies, which provide opportunities to make changes in our lives, in societies, or changing the whole policy systems. They are all important. What we need to do is that we need to develop capacities in our universities to produce high quality evidence, because we will get always critique from outside demonstrating you are getting public money. We are giving you so much money to your universities, your faculties. Show us what you are doing with this money. Accountability. Is that correct? And then we should demonstrate that at a single child level or global level, we can make changes for public goods. This is, I think, we can call impact. Yes.
Wonderful answers,
Wonderful.
actually.
Thank you very much. Ah, wonderful.
Thank you both, the question and answer. And I totally agree with you that we have to refocusing our impact and not just looking at the research publications only, but we also could benefit from changing our society for next generation. And every child counts. Now, are there any questions from the audience? We still have some time, so don't be shy. But if you cannot, if you don't want me to translate for you, that's fine. You can have the microphone. But if you feel free for me to change, we have a question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor O'Hara and Professor Uyalman for their meaningful presentation. My name is Kirikon Hongyim from Equitable Education Fund. So I just would like to have a very short question for Professor Uyalman. So according to the wonderful project that you are developing, the project I think is very important and aligned with our EAF are doing, and it's going to be the project that benefit a lot of school that you are developing. And according to the indicator and the question that you have, the 462 question, so I'm just asking your perspective idea that after you collect those data and present those data to the school, in terms of the feedback loop that the school gonna get the data, and what is your perspective that how does the school gonna develop according to the data they are provided? Is it gonna be the convergent way that they're gonna look at the scoring the question and they're gonna climb the ladder to meet the standard, or they're gonna develop into the divergent way that they can? I think there are many schools that have their own culture, their own norm that develop outside of the rubric scoring. So what is the way that you think is this going to be the future of the development of the school after they get those feedback?
Excellent question. Thank you. First, we are collaborating with the Ministry of Education. All data goes to the Ministry of Education. The idea is that Ministry of Education, when we developed the questions, the experts of the Ministry of Education came and then they told us that they have certain priorities that they would also like to be investigated, and then we also included them in the platform. First, we want Ministry of Education to be able to see the whole picture of the country. When Minister of Education sits down in front of a computer, he or she will be able to see every single detail of every single school in the country with the evidence provided this big data research. We don't publish the rankings of the schools. This is the most important. We provide this data to the schools to make sure that they are getting a feedback, reliable feedback from us. We also use artificial intelligence. We ask artificial intelligence we are training the artificial intelligence because this big data may be scary for the teachers and school administrators to understand. And this big data will be able to respond to the questions of the school teachers and administrators or parents about what they learned from this experiment. Schools will be able to see their ranking in the regional level, city level, regional level, state level, in the future, country level. What are they, where are they are seen? And we ask them to improve their practices by creating their own model of excellence. We don't ask them to do this, do that, do that. No, we say that, okay, you have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. Keep doing the things that you are doing well, but please also consider the things that are seen a weakness in your system, and then please improve that. And then we are also training our software system based on the quality of evidence. Currently, our experts are providing feedback to the schools. The evidence you provided for the question 29, it's not acceptable. Please make sure that the evidence you insert into the data have certain qualities. Therefore, we are training also the school administrators about the quality of evidence that we are expecting. And this is a top-down and bottom-up approach together to demonstrate that we can see as cumulatively as policymakers requested, that we can see that we can objectively identify strengths and weaknesses, and then we can provide the information. But we also focus on the qualitative data. We ask them to come together, discuss these issues, be honest about what they can do, what they cannot do, what are the opportunities, what are the weaknesses, and report back to the Ministry of Education. There are certain structural issues and problems that indicate, evidence demonstrate that cannot be solved in that school. Then Ministry of Education will be able to respond to that feedback. We will also be able to see the structural inequalities. In certain parts of the countries will show miserable results. And now we have evidence showing that in different parts of the country, there are serious problems. Serious gender problems, for example, serious ethnic problems, or serious other types of discrimination going on. But the policymakers are not aware of it. Now we have an evidence to demonstrate that there are certain issues that needs to be discussed with this type of project. And we will also do a comparative study to demonstrate whether IENA and OECD data works properly or not. Because their data is cross-sectional, not longitudinal. What we are doing is that we are collecting longitudinal data on millions of teachers and students. This is this will be the new way of seeing the quality of schools, and this is very complex. I hope I was able to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. We have approached the end of our dialogue. Before we leave, before we adjourn, we hope that someday we have another chance to visit Spain for the next WERA conference, and hopefully we have more time for discussion. So maybe in the near future, we hope to have you both back here at the Faculty of Education, and hopefully that EEF will still sponsor us and provide this venue for us as well. And thank you for your hopefully the near future we will have a collaboration research all together between EEF, Thailand, OBEC, and Faculty of Education. So for you both, thank you so much, and have a wonderful time here in Thailand, and safe trip back to your hometown. And for Thai people, thank you very much, and hope that you could come back to visit Faculty of Education at any time soon. ขอบคุณทุกท่านที่เข้าร่วมในวันนี้นะคะ โดยเฉพาะที่อยู่ทางบ้านด้วย แล้วก็ขอบคุณทุกท่านที่นี่ค่ะ ขอบพระคุณและขอให้ทุกท่านมีความสุขและสวัสดิภาพในการทำงานในการเดินทางและทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างที่ปรารถนานะคะ วันนี้สวัสดีและขอบคุณค่ะ